Start.
Good afternoon. Hello, this is Jeff from Locksmithing Innovations. This now is video 24, and as in video 23, I had stated that I was going to get back into putting more videos on the channel and getting more active from the past. Hope you like all the videos so far on my channel, and I hope it's... Now, this here video is probably the last one I'm going to do about the Schlage be365. I've done many of them were about picking the be365. I actually had a challenge to a lot of the people that worked, and we come up with other ways of stopping it rotating while you were picking it. We actually, on one of the videos, someone had mentioned taping it, and someone tried that and was able to pick it when it was taped. It's hard to do, it makes a mess. We jammed an elastic band in it, basically between here and here, and that allowed it not to rotate, so it was able to be picked. And the other one, someone made a piece of like packing foam, the sort of Kaizen foam that comes in packages, and cut it out so it would wedge it between the frame, and that worked as well for picking it and stopping this from turning. The video that I do like of all my videos so far on that is the one that I made, the tensioning arm for a leashy pick. It's pretty well my preferred method when I have to pick them now, because it also allows me to read it. There's not been a lot of views, but if you search the channel, you'll find the one that does this. This is all about the clutch rebuild. And like in all my videos, I look throughout YouTube, and I actually commented on a couple other YouTubers about how they're a little tip on the rebuild, because they both indicated a method that I originally had come up with as well, but never put it on YouTube, to try to rebuild them. It sort of works, but it's not the right way. To this date, as I do, I always research the subject to make sure I'm introducing everyone to new things. I haven't seen any video yet that indicates the correct way of doing a clutch rebuild on these. There's a lot of good ones. Jason from S&E Locks had some good tips on his. But I'm now going to show you the correct way of doing a clutch rebuild. The reason why I know this is we service 4 buildings full of students up by a university in our location that has easily 100 of these things in each building. And then we have other customers that have them. And this has allowed me to develop the correct way of rebuilding these clutches. It's dead simple, and I'm going to show you today. And as I say, this primarily probably will be the last video on anything to do with the be365. So we're going to start. Okay. Now, I do want to show you something that if you are a service technician, because this channel is primarily, I mean, anybody can watch it, for the service technician. What we come up with is a way of making a cheater cord. Okay, and I'll show you from the back of this one, but I'm going to plug this in right now. There we go. And then, as you can see, now I can turn around and I can, you see how that's spinning? We know this is a defective one. I'm going to show you how to rebuild it. It's not turning the tailpiece. I'm going to do it one more time. Okay, it just timed out. You see how that's spinning and not really turning that tailpiece properly? So if it was trying to drive a deadbolt, when I hold it, this is just spinning. You see? So it needs a rebuild. We know that. When it times out, theoretically, I haven't seen the red light, but it might have already timed out. Now, how do you make this cheater cord? That's the primary thing. We ended up with so many parts because sometimes there is problems with the keypads and other things, so you have no choice but to replace a unit. This is your inside. If you take this And you take your wire and pop this off or whatever and cut it right there with a pair of side cutters, okay? Now sometimes the wire will pop out on its own easily. Sometimes you gotta really pop it out of the way, but it's funny because whenever you don't want the wire to come out of here, it won't. There you go. So now, if I cut that, and I brought some right like that, boom, and then I take a knife, I strip off the heat shrink tubing, then strip back the wires. I'm going to show you one that we've done, because now every one of us technicians has one. So right there you can see there's 2 wires that go to that switch, cleaned them off, the insulation, wrap the wires together. Now I'll eventually solder these and put some heat shrink tubing over them. That's our little cheater cord. The reason why we make this cheater cord is so when we are rebuilding them, we don't have to have the back on it. We can test it easily and make sure the rebuild has gone fine. And we can put that in there like that, and boom, hit the lock button. Now if I didn't know the code for this one, I could use the code. I don't even have a factory reset. But there you go. So you see, that's that. So that's why we make these cheater cords. Really quite easy to make. Don't make the mistake I did at the first. I cut it really short. I thought, okay, maybe it won't work unless these 2 wires are connected. And it also won't work if it's short. I think it's a matter of, in the circuit and the chips, and that it's the amount of draw that it's not recognizing it. Because the one I did first and made short, I did clear off the insulation and put the wires together and it still wouldn't work. It only works if you leave a little bit of a leg there, like that. I'm sure it don't matter how long that leg is, but there you go. You can make a cheater cord. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, we know this one doesn't work. Okay, so what I wanted to show you and explain to you and get for an understanding now, okay? Now, the other videos that people have shown, what they would do, and I've left this shaft out, okay, with the little spring-loaded pin, we'll put it in. What they would do is something that I started doing, but it's not really the right way of rebuilding, is they would take and put it up a step like that, so it was already partially engaged, and then fire it off. And if they fired it off then, they would get it to work. So basically, would that sort of do a rebuild? Yes. Would it do a proper rebuild? I'm just going to hold my finger so this doesn't pop up. You see, so here's the thing. That leg should be touching that. And you see there, it's touching there and there. So even though I moved it up, here's what causes these things to fail. And when we take this apart, we're going to see it. Your spring starts to compress, okay? Because this is a motor. It's not a solenoid, like some people have called it. It's a motor. In the circuitry that's behind this whole thing here, and that, in the brains of it, and on the circuit board, okay, and all your chips and everything else, it's telling that motor how much to rotate. So you see there, it's spinning. It's telling it how much to rotate. Now, if your coils of your springs aren't compressed, tensioned up, it will pull it up all the way. After so many years of use, okay, what happens is this spring starts to tighten up those coils. So the same amount of rotation won't pull this up all the way. And that's what's causing it, okay? Because spring and spring steels, okay, yes, it has some memory, but when we make springs like this, and the reason why I know this is I worked at a spring factory. I also apprenticed as a machinist, and I made springs. And on a lathe, to make a coil spring like that, it would be wound, the spring steel would be wound along a wave, on a lathe with a mandrel, okay? But after a while, with it keep constantly turning like that and being used to pull this up, it tightens up its coils. And once the coils tighten up, it doesn't pull this up high enough to engage this pin, okay, in the cogs of this unit properly. And that's why it slips. That's why this one over here is slipping right now. And I'm going to show you how quick and how easy it is to rebuild. And the reason why is I wanted people to understand. Now, Jason from S&E, and he's a great shop owner, great locksmith. He used to join in on his Saturdays, but I haven't had a chance for a while. He found one where this pin wasn't cleared, and he showed you how to ream it out with a drill. Okay, because that's what gets pushed into this cog right here. Okay, and boom, once that's pushed up into the cog, then it'll allow you to unlock it and lock it, because then it'll start turning this hub here. Okay, so basically what we're going to do, and that's a spring that I took off just to show you guys, like if that spring was coiled up, and I had a screwdriver here, if that spring after a while kept turning and kept turning, you see your coils get tighter. And the same revolutions of that motor, it's still revolving the same amount, but because your coils are tighter, it's not pulling the little cam on here, it's not pulling it up as much for that same amount of revolution. Okay, and that's your problem. That's all your problem is right there. There are some safe lock manufacturers that use the same concept. SecureRAM, who I'm certified with, in their motors, on some of their locks are using the exact same concept, okay? And it's a smart concept, it works. But after a while, the springs, as I say, spring steel will tighten those coils up after a while. That's why our shocks and our springs and our leaf springs and everything wear out in time. So all you got to do to rebuild, and we're going to rebuild this one over here that I just demonstrated earlier. Take off my cheater cord, and we'll go through this stage. Now, when me or the other technicians, like Solomon, who's behind the camera, and he was introduced, and just say hello, Solomon, that's all you gotta do, buddy.
Hello, guys. Yeah.
He was introduced in the last video. We'll take the lock off of one of these students' units when it's failed, and then we'll go sit on the floor out in the hall, and we'll rebuild it. Usually 20 minutes or so, it's back on the door, and it's done. So what you do is you pull off all 6 of your T15 screws right here, okay? I use an extension because these 2 right here are hard to get with a short bit, but they work perfect with the extension. Okay, so that's that obviously. Now we change out to the T10 bit, because these 2 little Torx screws here are T10s. Now remember, when we first showed you this one, it was failing. Okay, so here we go. Now, we're going to see that pin's moving free. So what I usually do is, just so it's out of the way while I'm working on it, I just pop that off. Now you see that spring sprung down when I took this off. So that tells me it was already backing itself off. Now all I do here is a bit of stretch right in the middle there. Okay, now you come pretty well to the bottom of that cavity. You can even come further. And what you want to do is stretch it right where it's lugging in with this lug in the plastic here. Now, I'm going to show you with the cheater cord, it going all the way up without putting it back together. Then we'll put it back together and we'll demonstrate this thing's going to work for you. Okay, so right now, I'm just holding it so it doesn't flip off. Boom, all the way up, right to the top, right up there. and in a few seconds, all the way to the bottom, right to this stop here. Thing's just been rebuilt. That's how quick you can do it. So, we're going to put the little spring-loaded pin and the tailpiece back in. Okay, that puts everything into the works. There we go, right there. You can see now the spring's hanging out just a hair right down there. Okay? And basically, I've had it hang out way, way down. But I know now, on the rebuild, that I just did on this one, that when I put it all back together, you're going to get a working lock, no problem. Okay, T10, 2 T10 screws. Now we got 6 T15 screws. Boom, boom. And the only reason, you can do this with the back of a lock, but it's just a little harder with that back and that switch hanging off. And if you are a technician and you do have to rebuild lots of these, like these buildings are getting older. So because they're getting older, we get lots of calls. And I'll also tell you another trick we do as far as part of the rebuild goes. Come on, Jeff. Get it back together. Gotta love it sometimes when you... there we go. Right there. There we go. We're back together. Now, 6 screws. And I tend to do these just like pretty well putting a car tire on. I do them in sort of alternate order so that they don't have no hang-ups in any way, shape, or form. Oh, there we go, I'm pushing code buttons. Now some of these I've never done a factory reset on. These are stock that I pulled out just to do this video and that, so I don't actually have a working COM to show you. Some of them I don't even have working keys, not that I couldn't make it. Now, earlier on, when we had the cheater on with a fresh battery, I could hold this tailpiece and that thing would just spin. So now I can't get it to spin when I'm holding the tailpiece. But just so that you know, I ain't messing with you. One of these boxes I have out here today will have a deadbolt in it. And I'm going to show you another little tip as well. So, brand new deadbolt. So boom, we're going to peel our label off of it. Because obviously, when we do have to replace one, if there's nothing wrong with the deadbolt, we just don't replace it, that's all. You know, if the deadbolt's worn out, we'll replace it. So we end up with a few extra deadbolts and that. So, basically, okay, as you can see, free turning. Now, boom, boom, times out, boom, spins like nothing, okay? Now, what we do when we do a test, we'll have it all back together on the door. We'll test it on the floor when we rebuild it, but when we put it all back together, rather than punch it in the code 100 times, we'll just turn it to a different position around the clock. Now it's when the Bible's facing at 3, I call it 3 o'clock. So boom, 3 o'clock works. As soon as it times out, I'll take, doom, go there. Now, without the back on and the switch, the cool thing is I don't even have to retract the deadbolt. So I did that one at 3, so now I'm going to do it at 6. So, boom, oh, turn it in the wrong way. Okay, so you see, now I'll do it at 9, and I'll retract the deadbolt. And I don't need a combination because of the cheater cord, you see? There's no switch there. These are the 2 wires for the switch, and I've told the circuitry to ignore the switch. So I can then go and do a test easily because a lot of times we'll use leave the back on the counter inside the unit, you know, with the 2 cover screws and this part. Okay, now it is one that's complete when we do that. This part here, and one that I haven't just cut the cord off of like I did earlier in the video. Okay, so we can test this all around the clock to see that it's not slipping. It'll work for a couple of years before it needs. Now, the other little tip I was going to tell you is if you've got like hundreds of units, and this customer uses us primarily because I've proven between picking these things at 3 o'clock in the morning when people have come back from vacation from other countries to the unit, I get a call at 3 in the morning to go out and let them in because the batteries are dead. Well, for the longest time, I didn't have the override keys and I'd have to pick them. That's how I got really good at picking these things and understanding how to pick them. But now what we do is when we do a clutch rebuild, we'll either put CR here or we'll put CR at the end. That means clutch rebuild. And I think this is the 30th of June.
That's correct.
30th of June. And oops, 24. So I can have like 2 or 3 lines written in there, or I can take something to like acetone or thinner up to the place and wipe that off and put another one. But I can put another line or another date below here. So we know how long our clutch rebuilds are working. To this point, this type of clutch rebuild, first of all, we used to move that little thing up on the spring like other people have taught. But I started this a little while back, and we've never had to go back and service one that we've done a clutch rebuild. I imagine in a couple of years we'll have to do the same thing because that spring will tighten up again, and just giving it a stretch is all you got to do. Okay? And as I say, I wanted to make sure that there was one video that he came close, but he missed the boat on the fact that it's all in your spring tension. As I say, as a young lad out of high school, I worked as an apprentice machinist before I got in the trade as a locksmith, although I did start studying at 17 and my first professional job was at 18 to be a locksmith. I left school when I was 15. But because I studied machine shop in school, I got an apprenticeship as a machinist. And above that machine shop, about 2 floors up, was a spring manufacturer that my brother worked at for a while. And when he went on to do other things, the man who had that asked me if I'd come up and work for him, and I did for a while. And really enjoyed it because it taught me all about spring manufacturing. So, as I say, when that spring starts to tighten up, that's why, because the same revolutions is not pulling that thing up far enough, and that's why you're getting the slipping. You see me just rebuild this one, and as I say, when I rebuilt it, that's all I had to do. This is throwing that deadbolt in and out without a problem. That's all I had to do was stretch your spring. Just don't overstretch it. You see, you just need a little stretch, and that's all you need. Just a little stretch in the center there, because now that same amount of revolution is making that travel higher. That's all there is to it. And that lock's ready to be reused. No problem. Once again, thank everyone that has watched my videos and everyone that has subscribed and who has left comments. There will be some more really. I've been wanting to do one for quite a while. I do a lot of unique things in our field, and in fact the guys nickname them, they nickname them to Jefferizing.
That's correct.
And there's a lot of little Jefferizings that I'm going to let you know, but the next video you'll really appreciate, because it is a gold mine of a solution for many door issues. Okay, most people wrongly diagnose it, and the next video that me and Solomon will do, and once again, Solomon, thank you for being the cameraman.
Thank you, my pleasure, sir.
And as I say, Solomon has come over from Qatar, and he worked Qatar, Saudi Arabia, is from Mumbai, and an excellent student and really coming a long way and doing great things. So
Thank you.
to everyone watching, take care. Thank you very much for your likes, your subscriptions, and your comments. Till the next one, this is Jeff, and take care. Bye now.